great to be able to see you. I normally walk around and stand in front of the stage, but there's no space. So what I'll do is I'll stand in the middle here behind the table. Quick sound check. Can you all hear me at the back of the room? Good, good. All right, so we're in good shape and technology should work. Well, it's great to be here. You might notice from my accent that I'm not American. I'm actually a New Zealander, but I have lived and worked in America. In fact, my prior role before becoming the CEO and founder of MyWave was I was the president and CEO for SAP in North America. And what I have done in my past is 27 years in the tech industry, and 17 years of that was with SAP, automating end-to-end value chains. And in end of 2012, beginning of 2013, I left SAP and I formed a new company called MyWave. And the reason why I did that was that I concluded that at the end of 17 years of hooking up end-to-end value chains in 27 different industries in Asia Pacific, in the US, and in Europe, that there was some railroad tracks that hadn't been laid. And the reason why I'm calling this talk that I will give you today, CRM is so 5 minutes ago, is that Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, all of us companies that were around when we came through the year 2000 and we automated the enterprises, the railroad station stopped at CRM. So we did financials, we did manufacturing, we did distribution, and we stopped at CRM. And what we have been doing, and this is actually very relevant to intelligent assistants, because when you start to look at what's happening in the world today with intelligent assistants, and we're here over the next 2 days to talk about this, is that the consumer is no longer a dumb, passive participant at the far end of a value chain to be stuck into a funnel to be sold to be dropped out at the end of, and we need to change some paradigms with how we work with customers. And I'd like to share with you some of the work we've been doing with some big enterprise companies around the world and how we're starting to change that paradigm. And the reason why we came across this is that when I was actually in my prior role working as the president of SAP for North America, I was working with some of the biggest corporations in North America. And in that role, you get to fly around the US on a private jet, which is a lot of fun, and talk to a lot of CEOs about what's keeping them awake at night. And there were a few things that were keeping them awake at night. Their biggest problem was the consumerization of devices. And the consumerization has gone all the way to more power in the hands of the customer now than at any time in the history of the planet. It's even going down into vehicles and motor vehicles, where motor vehicles are becoming a really intelligent platform. And then you're starting to then look at the millennials, who are the kids born post-1986, who are controlling about $1.3 trillion of spend, and they're not looking to work with enterprise brands in the old way anymore. They don't want to go onto static websites. They don't want to be churned and burned. They're looking for authentic experiences in a very different way. And then you start to look at Joe Pine, who authored The Experience Economy. Most brands join each other in the race to the bottom on price. And yet it's been proven that people are prepared to pay a premium for a great experience, if only you would be able to determine what that experience is. And Apple is probably the best example of creating a great experience. And through creating great experiences, you create followership. And it is not about price. You just want the next MacBook Pro. You just want the next iPhone. And they've cracked it. There are many brands out there. If you even look at Amazon just make it so easy to buy. Am I already on Amazon because I care about price? Well, I think the price is about right. It's just easy. One-click buy. It ships. I get it when I want it. And so the world is shifting into these experiences where people are not so worried about price. And then you then start to look at the worldwide economy. Well, since the 2008-2009 downturn, we're in this new normal where it's really hard to get growth. And you continually read it in the Financial Times around the world. We could be teetering on the edge of recession. We're struggling to get growth. Why are we struggling to get growth globally? It's actually because a lot of our businesses, we're still in a very wasteful cycle of an old push economy, which goes back 150 years for the Industrial Revolution. And I'll talk a little bit about that, because there is a role that technology can play to unlock a lot of value, and I'll talk a bit about that. And that comes back to bringing customers much more to the fore inside the value chains and giving them more power over data. And there's a lot of value to be unlocked there, and I'll talk a bit about that. And last but not by no means least, another thing that's driving change is government regulation. So if you're in the banking industry or if you're in the healthcare industry, there's an awful lot of regulation, and that starts to drive change. So these are 5 big paradigm shifts that are driving change for every corporation in America, and in fact, every company around the world. But what's happening with all of this as well is you're getting this intelligence layer that's coming in, and I will make an argument, and you're starting to see Gartner picking up on this as well, that browsers will be a thing of the past. If you think about it, why is it that we have to go into a browser? Why do I have to hop onto a website? Why do I have to key in my same information again and again, and I'm locked into silos? And even apps haven't solved it, because I'm still locked in a silo because I have so many apps on my phone. There's a thing called app fatigue. I'm so sick of apps because I'm siloed and stuck in the middle of all of these little apps. So I don't bring everything together. So there's this new ambient intelligent layer, and many of you in this room are involved in that, at the forefront of bringing an intelligent layer to the internet that actually starts to change the way that people work. And you can start to see Amazon is doing this with their Echo device in people's living rooms, and you just say, get me my next set of paper towels. You're starting to see this come up on many, many devices. And it's called personalization and hyper-personalization. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about why is this important. Think about it from this point of view. When I go and I'm staying across the road at the Waldorf Astoria, when I go down and I talk to the concierge and I say to the concierge, I'm looking for a great recommendation for a restaurant in New York City, I'll give the concierge there, who's like an assistant, he's a human one, a little bit of information about myself. I'm in New York and this is the kind of restaurant that I'm looking for. It's sort of personal, but not that personal. Now start to think about intelligent assistants and ambience now, and it's coming into my home through the Internet of Things, and we're getting hyper-personal. It's about my gene code, it's about my DNA, it's about my medical records, it's about my detailed personal financial affairs, it's about my kids, it's about me. And this is where I think that we have to start to think about, well, what does intelligent assistance mean? Is that an enterprise intelligent assistant, where you're kind of sucking up all of my data into Google, or I'm sucking all my data up into Facebook or wherever, and then am I comfortable in sharing that with everyone? And what I will do as I take you through this talk today is that I will start to share with you what American citizens are saying around the sharing of data and how personal is it. Because I'm not going to go and tell the concierge downstairs at the Waldorf Astoria all those things about me. But Jackie, my very, very smart assistant back home who looks after my calendar, and she knows a lot about my life. Does she know everything about me? Well, no. She knows the things that she needs to know to get the job done. So what's going to happen is that as intelligent assistance comes into my home, it's going to have to get really personal, be hyper-personal, and this is where the opportunity lies for brands. And you're going to need to give consumers control of some of that information about themselves, otherwise they're not going to share it with you. There are like almost concentric rings coming to my core of privacy. A little bit about me, I'm looking for a restaurant. A lot about me, here's my core DNA, and here is my dreams and wishes, and here are my detailed personal financial affairs. And that's like a super trust relationship. And so these are some of the things that we are working with when we're starting to look at these coming out there. And one of the challenges that most corporations face, because I've been automating these value chains for the last 17 years in just about every major brand in the world, is that we've gone and done a great job of automating everything all the way down that value chain. And the problem is that we never laid that last mile of railroad track that I talked about before. So we stopped at CRM, and that poor little consumer down the far end, well, guess what? She's treated today by most corporations as a passive participant at an end of a value chain to be had stuff pushed to. And when you talk to a lot of marketing people, oh yeah, we're doing another campaign, we're going to push ads, pop-up ads, spam, like it comes at you, you all know it. In fact, how many of you in the room, if I could see a show of hands, like pop-up ads and all the stuff that comes at you at the internet today? No one, no. And I do this survey around the world, nobody likes it. It is a broken experience. Why do you think ad tech and ad blockers is now becoming the single most talked about thing in the world at the moment? Why? Because people are just fed up with it. What has happened is that this old industrial revolution, 150-year-old model, and you can't go and put intelligent assistants on this. You do that, you are going to create a very broken experience. At best, you're going to automate some old processes. So you need to start to rethink the paradigm, and this is some of the work that we've been doing. So what we start to do is we start to put the customer at the center. So you don't wake up in the morning and think about your products and your services first. Think about your customer first and a thing called with their jobs to be done. And I'll talk a little bit about this. Because this is actually, when you start to look at their becoming relevant in the context of their daily life and being respectful of the norms of human relationships, you start to put the customer at the center and look at the world through their eyes. And then what you can start to do, and we've been doing this with a lot of brands, is you start to wrap around the customer the different parts of the value chain centered on them. And this is where you can start to relook at data, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But you can actually start to have retailers having direct, hyper-personalized segment of one relationships with the consumer. The manufacturer can. There is no reason why a manufacturer can't have a hyper-personalized relationship all the way back to, hey, I love that last pair of shoes that I bought. In fact, Doc and I were talking about this over dinner. You know, the last pair of Rockport shoes that he bought that were personalized to his feet, and they changed it. But he had no ability to go back to say, I wish you wouldn't change that because I would love to keep buying those shoes, but he doesn't buy those shoes anymore because they're not the same kind of shoes anymore. So there's a lot of opportunities that's lost there. So then if you start to think about this, how do you now start to build these relationships, these hyper-personalized relationships? Again, and I go back to that metaphor of, you know, is it the concierge downstairs at the hotel, or is this an assistant that's really helping me in the context of my daily life? And we call it at MyWave the norms of human relationships, and we've forgotten them in the digital world. And in fact, in the digital world, we're downright rude. Nobody would have us pop-up ad or walk into a room and say, buy my stuff. And they shout at you. They shout at you on television. They shout at you on the internet. It's downright rude. So the norms of the human relationship is the most first thing is permission. Do I have permission to have a relationship with you? Step number one. Step number two is use the information that we share between us with respect. Make sure that it's secure and make sure that that is a respectful relationship. Make sure that we actually have a relationship with trust, because the more I trust a person, the more I will share about myself with you. So this is not ad tech on steroids throwing junk mail at me. This is about a relationship that's called a conversation. And I think that Doc Sills has actually written in the book, The Intention Economy. All relationships start with a conversation. And intelligent assistants are really great at that, because what they can say is, hi, I'm here to help you today. In order for me to be able to serve you better, I'd like to know a little bit more about you in these areas. But people will only share more about themselves if they trust you. And if they don't trust you, they won't. And you know, it was interesting. We just did a survey in the last month in North America, because we're just launching MyWave up here, and we wanted to know what US citizens thought. And what was interesting that came out of that 83% of American consumers said they would not use an intelligent assistant if it gathered and shared personal information without their knowledge or their control. Think about that word control and knowledge, and think about, again, the norms of the human relationship. And then the last point is mutual value. All relationships, whether you get married or you enter into a relationship, it's about, well, you know, are you feeding each other? And, you know, marriages break down when the couples stop feeding each other. You know, it's just, there's nothing there anymore. How many empty relationships do you have with people and brands on a daily basis, or broken relationships because they've breached one of these norms of the human relationship? So when you're designing these end-to-end new experiences for customers, you've got to go beyond CRM. And it's not that you throw CRM away, but we've come up with a new term. We call it CMR. Customer Managed Relationships. We've just inverted the letters. And so what we are at MyWave is we work with CMR, Customer Managed Relationships, invert it, put the customer at the center, and start to have them as an active participant in your value chain using Intelligent Assistant within the norms of human relationships. And within that, you then start to build the relationship based on trust, and the customer is in control of the data. So you've got a lot of data sitting in these old CRM silos, and hey, you know, I was guilty of that. I'm back in, 15 years ago, we launched CRM. That's an old technology. And a lot of that data sits inside these silos, and I just call it the mortuary of data. And most corporations that we work with say, oh my God, we find it so hard to keep our customer data up to date. It's all out of date. Well, what if you actually use a CMR system where you take the data that's in CRM and you populate it back to the consumer, and you give them the ability to have control of that. So they're continually updating it and sharing now their next dreams, their next wishes with you. What's the next purchase that they want to make? Or what's the next feedback that they want to have? because it's not, your relationship with the customer is not just when they buy something, it's also when they're owning it. And you want a long-term relationship because you'd like them to come back again and again. And again, this is the work that we're doing with corporations, helping them actually make this real. So what you do is you start to look at an approach where you start to look at the world through, as I said, the eyes of the customer, and you start to look at their jobs to be done and the end-to-end outcomes. Because often, like when we work with banks, the banks say to us, oh, well, we have mortgages. And then we say, well, what outcome is the client trying to get? Well, the client's actually trying to get a home and things in the home. It could be a new couch. It could be a new car on the driveway. So when you start to then look at that end-to-end jobs to be done, suddenly we can have an intelligent assistant helping the client not just get the mortgage, but find the home, get the things in the home, get the new car on the driveway in the home, get the new boat for the home. And these then suddenly start to become new banking conversations in the context of an intelligent assistant having the right conversations with the right customer at the right time in conjunction with physical people. This is anytime, anywhere, and I've talked about the end-to-end outcomes. So this is a little bit about what we do. So MyWave, who are we? Because we're new to the US. So we have an intelligent assistant that runs either on mobile, tablet, or desktop, and we help enterprise brands reimagine their customer experiences to enable them to serve their customers better and actually improve revenues. And I will talk to you a little bit about some of the examples of that today. And for people, for the consumers, we just help people get what they want when they want it in the easiest possible way within the norms of the human relationship, and also that they have control over their data in conjunction with those brands. So they get to know a little bit more about what they're going to share about themselves in order to create the value. So what we end up doing, though, what's interesting, and these are live case studies out of the markets that we've been operating in outside of North America, is that we've now got retailers that are working with a bank and working with an automotive company because the retailer who's selling tins of beans wants to help housewives who shop in their supermarkets get cars. So the retailer is actually using Frank to help somebody find the car that they want. Frank then helps them assure the car that it's roadworthy, registers the car, helps them get the finance for the car, helps them get the car registered, gets the insurance for the car, and an end-to-end outcome. So these are the new ecosystems that you can start to connect up. And these companies are not forming joint ventures to do that. What they're doing is they're actually forming loose partnerships and ecosystems to add more value to their clients. We've got another car company that we're working with that actually wants to work with car hire companies so they can sell more vehicles to the car hire companies to help the people in those vehicles find great restaurants and find great bed and breakfast, and so they're entering the tourism industry. And again, within the norms of human relationships, I will share more about where I'm going if I know that that data, I have some control over that, I'm getting some value out of it. And in fact, the car company is making some money out of clipping the ticket on the referrals to the restaurants that are on that tourism trail. So you start to see how these things can start to turn into ecosystems. An intelligent assistant working with the consumer within the norms of human relationships and privacy and trust, you start to create these amazing new experiences. And we've got some incredible examples of that and references down under. And what I wanted to do was to give you one to make it real. Now, this is one in energy. Now, in many parts of the US, you've deregulated the electricity market, or the power market, as you call it here. In New Zealand and Australia and in the UK, they've done that as well. And so what I want to do is to show you the intelligent assistant called Frank, and effectively this has created a multi-sided marketplace. This company is a client of ours, it's SaverWatt. So what SaverWatt do is that they're a fourth party, and they help people save money on power. And Frank on the left-hand side helps the consumer, and this is their data. They're in control of it. They've given SaverWatt the power to be able to help them go out and find a better power price, and Frank automatically switches them from energy provider to energy provider. I personally use it, and they've saved me $100 a week, so I was pretty impressed with the service. And then what we'll show you on the right-hand side is what the energy retailer gets out of it, just to make this a little bit real for you. So hopefully I can get this. I think I'll have to click forward and get the video going. So this is now the consumer side. And what we've done here is that because little old ladies also use Frank, you can talk to Frank, but we just added a big green go button, so they don't have to be intimidated by talking to an assistant. You can tap to the assistant, you can talk to the assistant. And they just need 3 pieces of information in terms of your power number. And then Frank automatically switches, and all he does is he just sends you notifications of, oh, I've just saved you some more money. Because even though the energy market was deregulated in New Zealand, 70% of people still weren't switching because it was just too frictionful. It was just too hard. Same thing in Australia, same thing in the UK. And this is coming to the US. And I want to show you the side now for the energy retailer, because the energy retailer also gets assistance. So what the intelligent assistant does here is he now helps the retailer connect directly to customers, because they find it really hard today to do that. And they get notified when customers are not on the best rate or not on the right power plan. And so they have an opportunity to make sure that they keep their customers, that they get real-time market data and real-time market information. And then there are energy providers that have excess capacity and they need to get, say, 1,500 new clients in a certain geography. They can then say, well, we need 1,500 new customers, and this is the kind of customer we're looking for. And then Frank can actually match the customers together, all within the norms of the human relationship and privacy and trust. And because I don't have a lot of time today, I can't give you too many more, but what I am going to do is I am going to take you to the next one. Great. These are some other examples. I mentioned the automotive one. So this one is where we're actually helping people find the cars that they want, and again, get that complete end-to-end outcome. So we've basically taken all the threads of the value chain, from insurance to finance to the vehicle, to also notifying the vehicle dealers of who's in the market looking for these types of vehicles. So this goes back to the whole notion of the intention economy. Consumers are signaling their intent through Frank. I'm a housewife, I'm looking for a new SUV, I'm looking for this SUV that's got so many miles on the clock, or it could be a brand new one, and you can get real-time offers, real-time promotions coming, and what we call advertising 3.0, which means that you're not just spamming me with junk mail, you're giving me offers and promotions related to the things that I'm really interested in. So this is a platform where you can actually start to get rid of the whole problem that ad tech has and start to engage directly with the end consumer. This is an example of one that we're just launching in Australia. It's called Best Nest. So all of the data around homes and properties exists. And so the consumer is claiming their home. They're able to actually, it's a bit like Facebook for homes. We fondly call it also Placebook, where I can actually update photographs about my home. I can actually start to pin the fact that I want to go and renovate the kitchen. I can then issue an intent cast to tradies to give me quotes on the kitchen. I can then also get through location services. I'm thinking of actually looking at a new open home, so then Frank can bring me suggestions based on the areas that I've indicated. So I don't have to go through all the websites trawling through trying to find things. Frank can bring me the great examples. And then what we're doing is we're working with banks so that you don't have to have all these mortgage forms. Frank auto-fills a lot of the mortgage data based on the information that the consumer has within their personal cloud. So we can completely automate the mortgage experience. So you may still have a personal banker helping the client with the mortgage, but you're just creating these much more frictionless experiences. Building reports are also there. You subscribe to building reports as opposed to 10 people turning up and having to buy the building report 10 times. These are other examples of intelligent assistants, and again, within the norms of a human relationship. This is with a bank. where single-tap bill payments, instead of me going online on Sunday to pay my bills online, Frank brings me my bills, tells me how much money I've got in my account, and I single-tap the bill, and my bills are paid. It's quite simple. And we're doing that with a major bank, Westpac Bank, and funnily enough, the post office. Because the post office have all the digital bills, and what they do today is they print them, stuff them into envelopes, post them to me. I open up the envelopes. I then have to go and key it in on Sunday into my bank. How stupid is that? So we're just taking that, all of that information from the post office into the digital bills into digital personal clouds into Frank to be able to pay bills automatically. Another good example of a bank and a post office coming together to create a new outcome for the consumer. Consumer controls the data, it's centered on them, and it's all the same Frank. And this is the last set of examples of some of the things that we've been doing in real life projects. So you type or talk to him. So you just tell Frank, I want new jeans. And because it's my personal data, I probably wouldn't share my jeans size with the concierge at the Waldorf Astoria, but I would share it with Frank if I was going to get a pair of jeans in the right size for me. And he knows where they should be delivered. It's home. I don't have to keep entering my address because my home is in my personal cloud. I'm able to take a photo of anything and go find it. You can go find it on eBay, go find it on Amazon, or go find it on any store that we're connected to. This is where businesses get real-time market data. So this is where you can actually start to see how many people are out there looking for TVs, how many people are out there looking for cars, and you can do real-time offers, real-time promotions, and people can opt into brands, so you can bring informational, promotional content straight to those consumers without annoying them in the old static way. And you can see here the intent cast. This is the mortgage example. Tasmania is a little island off the coast of Australia. So this is a different kind of intelligent assistant. It crosses the bridge between the enterprise and the consumer. It's that last mile of railroad track where you have that two-way interaction. We've created a highway that's bi-directional between consumers and brands within the norms of privacy and the norms of a human relationship. And that is our story.
We have about 5 minutes for questions. I'm sure you have some, and we're trying to encourage people to be interactive from the beginning. Right behind you, Jordan. So from there, thank you.
Hello, this is Jordi Torres. I'm the CEO and founder of Inventa, and I have a question for you. You said one of the good things about Frank is he never asks the same question again. So, but what if my answer was wrong? Can I change what Frank remembers about me?
Absolutely.
How would you do that?
Well, let's say, for example, I tell Frank that I like soy cappuccinos, which I actually did, but this week I've decided that I actually like long blacks or Americano coffee. So you just tell, if Frank says the usual, you say, no, long black or Americano. So you can change it. So it's always under your control. And what he does is his memory, the secret sauce here is that you have the technology called the personal cloud. So the personal cloud, what we're able to do is we're able to federate data across many different places. So, you know, Woolworths might have data in their everyday rewards program. The bank may have my data. Data's in many places. And we've done a very clever thing with security where we don't go and aggregate all the data into a giant data pool. We federate the data. So I have use and utility and viewership over all of that information. And I can then change and update it, which is very valuable for banks and other companies because often that data is out of date. For example, if I move house, I just tell Frank, I've moved, here's my new address. Frank will automatically update, based on my control, all of the people that I want to tell my address has changed. You know how hard it is to change an address on anything? Or I've just got married. My maiden name has changed to my married name. I can now suddenly go and update everything. You know how hard that is today? So this is where you start to create these very simple things. So things do change in life. So nothing is fixed. It's what I call living little data versus big data. But it's a great question. Thank you.
So it seems to me that ultimately this would be like the final assistant, right? I don't know if that's the vision. Like from what I'm getting from this is like you will get help with anything, right? Like I need to buy something, I need to pay my bills. This takes so much power, so much like time and resources to put it together. Like as a company, how do you prioritize? What do you focus on? You mentioned like cars or houses, like how do you prioritize?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the way we prioritize, we built a very, very, very productive, very flexible technology, which is completely open API driven. We go from idea to implementation with a client in market, typically in less than 8 months. So we can move really quickly. So we've got very, very rapid production. What we do normally then is that the nice thing about starting in smaller markets like New Zealand and Australia is that you've got smaller economies where you can touch almost every industry very quickly. So we've got use cases for post offices, banks, automotive, retail, healthcare is coming along now. In fact, funnily enough, healthcare is coming out of the UK because of the issues to do with health and wellness. We've got insurance, so we're able to bring these up very quickly, and they all interconnect because what we did is we built the model centered on me and my life. And so I'm not a silo, I'm not an industry, I'm a person. And so if I think about all the things in my life, a lot of it's centered on the home and the things I have in the home. So that's why, you know, I have cars in my home, I have electricity in my home, I have television and entertainment in my home. So it's very easy to start to center on the person. And all of our projects with customers are paid projects, so they're all working with us. We're very lucky so far that they've all moved quite quickly. So we bring these what we call use cases up very fast, and because they're quite flexible and tailorable, we take Frank gets cleverer and smarter, and then you take that cleverness to another country, and he learns some more. So he just gets cleverer and cleverer. And we deliberately took a lot of the branding off that, but it's not about us and Frank, it's actually about the enterprises and their brands. So they can start to amplify themselves. And so the colors and the branding of our customers shines through.
So regarding the branding piece, I think that's interesting. So from the user perspective, I download one app and everything is integrated, or I have to download different apps? It's
the same, Frank, but you'll get different flavors coming through depending on the conversations. The whole thing is events and rules and conversation engine driven. So depending on the conversations, if I'm having conversations with my bank, it might be Westpac Bank, so it'll be very clear that I'm having a branding conversation with Westpac. If I branch now to, pick a car dealer, BMW car dealer, then it'll be very clear that I'm having conversations with BMW, and BMW's brands will be coming through. If I decide that I don't want a relationship with a brand like, well, I never will drive a Toyota Lexus, well then I'll just say, Frank, I don't ever want a pop-up ad, of anything on Toyota Lexus. Just don't so Frank can get rid of noise for me as well. Because what happens is when somebody knows I want to buy a car, I get everyone shouting at me, ha, she wants to buy a car. And so like with Nikes, Nike trainers are my favorite trainers. Just don't send me any other trainer stuff, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more.
Is there not sometimes a tension though between helping the customer and helping the customer figure out that they can save money when the company really doesn't want them to? Like, I mean, I know it's, I'm sure I'm paying way much more in my cable bill than I should be.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they would be happy if you helped me figure out how to save on it.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So I sit on the board of directors of a bank. I sit on the board of directors of Sky Television. So, you know, yes, we have that. So I do sit on the other side every day as well as helping the consumer. But here's the reality. The enterprise topper rate of the average Fortune 500 company, half a century ago, those brands could live about 75 years. Today, the average lifespan of a company is 14 years. They all know they're being digitally disrupted. So in the case of the energy retailers, I personally sat through some of the energy retail meetings that SaverWatt were having. And once they got over the shock that Frank was out there, because they said, oh, wow, we thought we had 4 years before something like this would come along. And they said, well, no, obviously we don't. They've actually embraced it because for two reasons. Number one, they felt that if they didn't, they could lose customers and they'd never know. But secondly, they've worked out also that Frank is actually a cheaper and much more cost-effective way of selling to clients because they don't need door knockers. They're not going to phone you at 6 o'clock to try and sell you an energy plan because it's really annoying anyway. I never want to talk to anyone at 6 o'clock in the evening when I'm trying to cook dinner. But that's when they all phone. You know, would you like to switch your energy provider? So they're using the technology now to help them reach more customers and also give them better customer service. There's another interesting thing. A lines company called me last week. So they're not the energy retailer, they're the lines company. And they now are fearing that they're going to be disrupted because of solar panels on the roof and batteries in the home. No one's going to actually take anything on lines. And so they're interested in this technology working with SaverWatt because they want to be able to create peer-to-peer energy trading using this kind of technology. So what it does is, yes, while some things die, new things are born, and you're actually able to help them create new business models. I'm on the board of Sky. Sky's really interested in this technology as well because you can actually start to really create very hyper-personalized entertainment experiences. Because at the moment, they don't have relationships with individuals. They have relationships with households. They really don't know what people like. So if you match this up with a recommendations engine, you'd have the most hyper-personalized entertainment experience you could possibly have. You can then start to bring it into, Rent Me My Life and, supply me the TV in my home and all of the entertainment in my home. You can start to connect up so many more bits of the value chain. So Sky's looking at how they make money out of home security as well as home entertainment. So there's a whole bunch of other things you can start to connect the dots on there.
And we're going to have to stop here, but MyWave has a booth.
Yeah, we do have a booth,
just,
yes.
Stop and talk. This is provocative. This is a great way to start, and thank you very much, Geraldine.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.